Don't know if it's me or if it's the world. Everywhere I look, like everything in my life, I just want it to be old again.
Grandma hobbies are officially making a comeback.
Everyone just wants to stay in all the time and be an old lady.
It's not that deep, it's just a spring dress. Completely ignores how trends reflect our current political moment and how aesthetics and ideology are connected.
2026 is a write-off. It's going to be a year of high energy costs and inflation.
I just filled up my car with gas. $55.
Nearly 80% of Gen Z or millennials are using survival spending just to pay for basic needs.
Should we start stockpiling food personally at home?
Millions of people are about to lose their jobs, they're about to lose their homes, they're going to lose everything they have, kids are going to be food insecure. We are looking at an economic tsunami.
This whole thing has gotten out of hand.
Gen Z was supposed to be the digital generation, raised in the heyday of the internet, defined by convenience, speed, and automation. But somewhere along the way, they traded their algorithms for fermentation. From the rise of homesteading and made-from-scratch meals, to gingham dresses in the garden, vintage tech, and even cozy crafts, the vibe has completely flipped. So much so that if you squint, Gen Z and a retired woman from 1952 are living surprisingly similar lives. Gen Z didn't just suddenly wake up and decide that they want to be like their grandparents. No, somewhere along the way, their priorities changed between rising grocery bills, the endless global conflicts, and a general sense that the future feels unstable. And so what's being labeled as Gen Z's return to traditionalism is really anything but traditional, rather a response to a world that's essentially pushing them out. So that is what we're going to be talking about today, why Gen Z is rebelling against the modern world, and how they've ended up in a culture that essentially romanticizes fending for yourself. So if you haven't been keeping up with the times, living like our grandparents is the hottest trend with the kids right now.
What did I do at the weekend? Oh, I had such a lovely time. Started my new book. I do also love a coffee, but it's got to be decaf now. Yeah, I don't sleep. And a shake.
And while yes, trends come and go these days too quickly to leave much impact on culture, this one seems different because it's not just a trend, it's a shift in lifestyle. We see it influencing current fashion trends where clothing is shifting towards more modest forms. For the first time since, I don't know, the 60s, I'm assuming, dresses are getting longer, blouses are back in fashion, and hair bows are a must-have accessory. So much so that it's split down into the fast fashion brands like Shein and H&M, all pushing frills, puffy sleeves, and flowing skirts in their latest drops. I am Exhibit A. All pointing to the Little House on the Prairiefication, if we can call it that, of the modern woman who's been hypnotized by the highly polished, idealized homemaker creators like Nara Smith and Hannah Nealman, who have risen to the rank of the most influential women online over the past few years.
Hey!
Good day. What a lovely home you have. It smells of additives and preservatives.
Can I get you anything?
Oh, just some water from your well will do.
Going further into this movement, you also have to live in a cottagecore dream of a home. I swear no shift has ever felt more dramatic than the whiplash of going from millennial gray homes to today's Nancy Meyer-inspired, cozy, knick-knack-filled interiors.
This is without a doubt the biggest home decor trend you are going to see in 2026. Grandma-core is huge right now. It might be even as big as Joanna Gaines' farmhouse was about 10 years ago. I feel like one thing that everyone is universally itching for in 2026 is spaces that feel more unique to them.
This is never more evident than in the flood of hate comments on any video where someone paints over natural wood with white.
A word to whoever painted these beautiful solid wood doors in my house. I'm mad at you.
But in their defense, literally everyone was doing this in the 2010s, so much so that it was practically a religious practice to walk around garage sales with a paintbrush in hand, ready to whitewash anything with character. And going from that to everyone restoring wood cabinetry on TikTok is a big jump. So while I personally would have never thought that the trendy homes of today would be so old-fashioned and doily-coated, here we are. Basically, the more grandma-core your home, the chicer you are. But you can't just take on the aesthetic of Anne of Green Gables, you have to do the work. Meaning that homesteading practices are all the rage these days, because where else are you going to frolic through fields, wicker basket of organic veggies in hand, and your milkmaid dress blowing in the wind?
Is anyone else constantly thinking this? Because my dream I've made it scenario in life is to live on a few acres of land
and we have chickens and goats and pigs and cats and dogs, and my babies grow up on a cute, like, homestead little farm.
Across the country, people in their 20s and 30s are buying land, starting gardens, learning to can vegetables, grind wheat, bake bread, raise chickens, mend clothes, and fix what breaks instead of throwing it away. Which I just think is so funny. Mind you, I'm making fun of myself as well. Just the other week, while in my milkmaid dress, I asked Josh if we should get ducks. But I'm not the only one. I'd bet just about everyone in my age group has muttered the words, "should I get chickens," since 2020.
This is a dream that I have had since lunch, and I am not giving up on it now.
But overall, everything homestead, from the sourdough starters to the livestock and of course the gardening, is trending. Which I want to mention, gardening used to be a niche hobby. Like, as surprising as that might seem now, gardening was never cool. Literally no one wanted to grow their own food in 2018. If you told someone 5 years ago that Gen Z would be obsessing over knitting circles and sourdough starters, they'd probably laugh, but here we are. So this overarching cultural shift has been growing and evolving over the past 6 years under different names and forms, and it's all rooted in the past. We started with cottagecore in 2020, then came the tradwives in 2021, followed by an array of micro trends, including the soft girl era under consumption core, and as of recent, grandma core. All across the country, Gen Z are turning to the rituals and lifestyles of their parents and grandparents, known as the grandma trend. It is the phenomenon where young adults utilize tendencies, memories, or hobbies that represent motherly figures in their lives, and use them at a young age instead of socializing with others their age. Instead of bar hopping or drinking until 2 in the morning, they prioritize self-care, relaxation, and nostalgic rituals in their lives. Essentially, Gen Z is rewriting the playbook of how to spend your 20s, stepping away from the live fast, die young, or YOLO mindsets of previous generations.
Live fast, die young, have a good-looking corpse.
Long-standing patterns with the youth, like drinking alcohol, smoking, and teenage pregnancy, are all at record lows, which, is a good thing, but it's not necessarily coming from a wholesome place of a generation-wide push to better themselves. It's simply that their current lifestyle doesn't lead to these outcomes. We know a big influence on this is the loneliness epidemic, where they just literally aren't going out with friends, but also in how they are the most health-conscious generation yet, often latching on to whatever health trend is popular, between hyper-focusing on seed oils, protein intake, and collagen powders.
He is a liar, as you say?
Well, absolutely.
Why did you work for him?
Savannah, slow down.
On top of that, all the hottest Gen Z hobbies these days are primarily home-based and often stereotyped as grandma hobbies, like knitting, birdwatching, puzzling, gardening, and baking. I swear everyone on my Instagram right now is knitting a sweater. And so putting all of that together, for most of Gen Z, a quiet night in and a good night's sleep often wins over staying up all night partying. As this Gen Zer shares, it's 8 p.m. on a Friday. Dinner of spaghetti and meatballs have been cooked, served, and put away. The kitchen has been cleaned. I have showered and moisturized and settled down on the couch with my crocheted blanket and a black and white cat named Maple. With a cup of mint tea in hand, made with my blue tea kettle and locally harvested honey, I eagerly turn on PBS to watch my favorite show, Antiques Roadshow. At the ripe age of 20 years old, I embody the routine of my mother and grandmother. Instead of spending nights socializing at the bar or at the club, my nights are filled with comfort and nostalgia in the comfort of my own home. And there are so many others just like me.
Do I look like a grandma to you? Because I feel like a grandma stuck in a 22-year-old's body, and there are a lot of things that excite the inner grandma in me. A quilt patchwork? No, a patchwork quilt. I think my bed wants one. It's asking for it.
But the question I am here to ask is why? Why is Gen Z embracing traditional lifestyles, and with that, why now? Because this goes beyond what some label as just a religious push of traditionalism, fueled by the tradwives, of course, who single-handedly indoctrinated an entire generation. And we know this because the trend has emerged on both sides of the political and religious spectrum, so there has to be more going on here. But what we do know for certain is that these young adults are searching for something, and they aren't just looking outward for it, but rather backwards. Okay, question for you. Do you ever feel like you are more anxious or sensitive than other people? Or find yourself thinking, why can't I just let this go? Why do I spiral over things that everyone else seems to brush off? Well, a ton of people go through life feeling that way. And even though they might really be struggling, they figure that this is just the way I am. But sometimes what's going on is actually OCD. And I know that's probably not what you were expecting, because a lot of people don't even realize they have OCD because of the stereotypes around it, making it seem like it's all about being organized. But real OCD is very different. It's serious, overwhelming, and exhausting, which is why I've partnered with NOCD to clear up what OCD really is and hopefully help people who might be unknowingly struggling with it. OCD can show up in many different ways, like disturbing, unwanting thoughts that you can't shake, constant reassurance seeking, urges to check or repeat things, or mental loops that steal hours from your day. Meaning that a lot of people living with it have no idea because it's so misunderstood. That is why I want to tell you about NOCD. They are the world's leading provider of specialized OCD treatment, and they created an online OCD quiz to help you recognize possible signs of OCD that you might be missing. Now, I want to be clear, this quiz is not a professional diagnosis, but it can be a helpful step towards better understanding your experiences and figuring out what to do next. And if it seems like your experiences align with OCD, NOCD can help you get the right care so you can start reclaiming your life. NOCD offers virtual therapy with licensed therapists who specialize in OCD. It's also covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans, and they provide support between sessions so you're never facing OCD on your own. Go to nocd.com/quiz to take the OCD quiz and learn more about how NOCD can help. Nostalgia. One of life's greatest gifts is the ability to look back on things with rose-colored glasses, forgetting how miserable things actually were. We all had that girl in middle school who swore she was born in the wrong generation, all the while romanticizing a time of food shortages, fixed class systems, and medical practices that involved herb-stuffed masks to protect against infection. But actually, we can't hate on anyone who says that they want to go back to the good old days, because we all do it. It's a natural human tendency to idealize the past, especially during uncertain times like the ones we're living through now. The past can bring a sense of comfort and familiarity.
The biggest crisis we face is the crisis of imagination. My PhD was on nostalgia and the rise of the far right, yeah? Because what happens when you can't see the future? You look to the past for answers and for hope. And it's not just in politics, is it? Our culture is saturated in nostalgia. Other than Make America Great Again, Take Back Our Borders, all this return to some fatherland rhetoric that's going on, there's also the whole aesthetic of Sabrina Carpenter and her 1960s look. There's the constant remakes and reboots, think Disney films, or the aesthetic of Stranger Things. Fashion arguably isn't even a revival, it's a repetition. And the thing is, with the politics of nostalgia, it's about loss. No one's nostalgic when times are good.
A return to something older, steadier, deeper, a reaching back for the wisdom of ancestors, a rekindling of traditions that once shaped families and nations, but were brushed aside as outdated relics in a rush towards progress. Millennials and Gen Z, generations often caricatured as detached, cynical, and screen-obsessed, are leading this return, and they're doing so with a fervor that shocks those who assumed tradition would simply fade into the past. This is something we've discussed before in my video about how nothing feels real anymore, in which I will repeat a quote in case you haven't seen that video. Research supports the efficacy of nostalgia as a coping mechanism. As a result of engaging in nostalgic recollections, people often report experiencing a more positive mood, feeling more socially connected, and having a greater sense that their lives are meaningful. And this goes for individual experiences as well as collective ones, as even COVID, which we all remember was not a good time, has been sugar-coated online. This is a very prominent mental state Gen Z is leaning into these days, as they're looking for literally anything that gives them a sense of stability in an unbelievably unstable world.
I'm serious when I ask this, but what do I have to do to get some precedented times back up in this? Because every time I open my phone, there is some never before seen crazy shit happening in the US. What do I have to do to get my times precedented again? Because I'm tired of living in unprecedented times.
Gen Z has inherited a world filled with climate anxiety, job insecurity, political division, and digital overload. For many, traditional structures provide a sense of stability. The trad movement promises clarity in an era of uncertainty, offering roles, rules, and a sense of purpose. It's rebellion by reversal. Where millennials rebelled against structure, Gen Z might be rebelling against the chaos of modernity by turning to eras past. Basically, coming of age during a global pandemic and the chaos that followed ever since fundamentally changed the trajectory of Gen Z's future, values, and priorities. It's not like they grew up fantasizing about acreage, flower gardens, and runner ducks. Well, I'm sure some of you did, but for the most part, this was never supposed to be a part of their story. They grew up like the rest of us, optimistic about the future, believing technology would improve our lives, trusting in a clear path to a happy middle-class life, and idealizing the modern American dream. But since then, we've had the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, the bird flu culling, the rental crisis, shrinkflation, the loneliness epidemic, the job market crisis, the AI bubble, the Ukraine war, the Venezuela invasion, and now the Iran war. Let me know if I missed anything. But in my opinion, that is far too much to deal with in just 6 years. So in response to this, what else would you expect people to do other than look frantically around for anything that brings back a sense of control to the individual? Having gone through all of this with no end in sight, a return to tradition is offered as one of the first opportunities for Gen Z to build life on something firm. As said here, I think people get really burnt out and overstimulated. A lot of it is not necessarily escapism, but kind of a return to what matters and things that fill you up instead of draining you down. When the future of food prices, energy, the school system, job security, and global conflict all feel uncertain, it would make sense that people would try and safeguard their own future by looking back to how things were done before industrialization. Again, not because they want to return to traditional family values, but because they're seeking agency and autonomy over their lives, and the era of homesteading seems to give them that. Because when the modern world isn't cutting it anymore, you have no other choice than to look for alternative paths. Okay, so now I want to address why I don't think this is a passing trend, but rather an ideology shaping an entire generation moving forward, because the signs aren't good that things are about to get any better. If you haven't heard, there's a war going on. Side note, I do think it's so funny, not in a haha kind of way, but a couple videos ago, I talked about how inflation is under control, and as long as nothing bad happens in the world, Gen Z should be able to get back on their feet. Lol. Literally, I posted that 2 weeks before the Iran war started, so there goes that idea. But this is what we're dealing with now, so let's talk about it, because the implications are far-reaching, including concerns about our food supply. Not that we're about to go run out and buy out all the toilet paper. We've learned our lesson, right? But this is likely to impact our food prices moving forward because fertilizer production relies heavily on natural gas from the oil industry in the Middle East. And without access to that, farmers are going to have to make hard decisions this growing season on whether to switch crops out or adapt to fertilizer supply issues.
My name is Russell Baining. My family and I farm right south of San Antonio. We're buying nitrogen right now, and it's about 40% higher than it was, 2 or 3 months ago, before the conflict. Let's just say that.
I'm Lance Lillibridge from Benton County, Iowa. We booked most of our fertilizer before the conflict in Iran. However, some of it we did not because it was too expensive. We're probably going to go without that particular nutrient on our crop this year. A lot of other farmers are doing the same thing.
And so as the price of fertilizer goes up, those costs flow down to the consumer at the grocery store. They conclude that extending the war through the spring and summer planting and growing season could push food at home grocery inflation toward 5 to 7%, and that prices would most likely not come back down even if energy prices retreated, preferring instead to restore margins that were compromised during the initial shock. To expand on that further, while we all hope this conflict will end soon, even if it does, the damage is already done. The supply chain has been disrupted, and our best case scenario in this conflict still involves higher food prices for the next year. And so in an age where people are already struggling to pay for food, and some are even using buy now, pay later for groceries, we can expect that strain to become even tighter moving forward. As said here, meat processors, for example, are highly exposed to the cost of diesel and energy-intensive livestock. Expect to see their input costs soar and their margins compress compress as the result of the war. Great. It does actually feel crazy that like nearly every interview and thought piece and article on the Iran war includes something along the lines of, if you don't already have a garden yet, you should think about starting one to offset your food costs. They're literally telling us to anticipate fending for ourselves. Cool. And this goes beyond food, right? The global economy runs on oil, and when oil prices rise, inflation tends to follow because nearly everything we get from our stores or at our doorsteps depends on transportation powered by oil. As shown here, rising fuel prices could push inflation higher, experts have warned, and even spark a global economic recession. But as with food prices, even if this conflict only goes on for a few months, the consequences are already unfolding. This is because the supply chains don't heal instantly, as companies have to adapt to the current market, meaning negotiating new deals with suppliers, changing contracts, adjusting factories, and moving manufacturing. It all drives up the costs for months or even years. This is a process we've seen before, and we will see it again, from the COVID supply chain issues to the bird flu egg prices, as well as fuel from the Ukraine war. It all disrupted prices that still haven't recovered. And so all of this just puts more fire under the butts of Gen Z to simplify their lives, cut spending, and look at more self-sustaining alternatives. In fact, in a lot of ways, we are at the beginning of the end of convenience, whether it's taken from us from the rising shipping costs or willingly giving up in favor for things that you actually have control over. Whether it's growing your own food, making your own bread, spending 10 million hours knitting a sweater, Gen Z is acting out of desperation to ease the rising cost of everyday life.
The more I cook from scratch and eat at home and raise my own food, the more I realize that the food system is a complete scam. For example, I made yogurt last night, and you want to know what's in this yogurt? Milk, and I had to add a little bit of yogurt to get it started, but I won't have to buy yogurt anymore. Milk and yogurt.
What is it, like sourdough bread is pennies on the dollar compared to store-bought bread? I also know so many people who thrift their own yarn for crocheting, and it is ever so popular to save seeds from store-bought veggies to grow your own now. Gen Z is nothing if not resourceful. But the worst part of all of this is that these large corporations couldn't care less that costs are about to go up because it all comes out in the wash. The wash being the consumers, of course. For example, aluminum prices recently hit a 4-year high after Iran struck 2 large smelters of metal in the Middle East. Aluminum, which is on the list of 60 minerals deemed critical by the US government, is widely used for beer and soda cans in cars and packaging. And do you think that those soda companies are going to just eat that cost? No. That is our problem now. Yes, it's only been a few months since the conflict started, but we're already seeing this happen. Things like flight baggage fees are going up, shipping companies are raising rates, and our dearest Amazon is adding a 3.5% fuel and logistics related surcharge for third-party sellers because they don't have enough money to take the hit themselves. Basically, corporate profits have never ever been better.
Can somebody explain to me why my internet bill has doubled in 6 years? Did the internet become more scarce? I am now paying almost $100 a month for internet. No crazy plan, no crazy fiber, optic, whatever, mega speeds, I don't know, just a normal plan that has doubled in price in 6 years. I swear it's these little price changes. It's just death by 1,000 financial cuts that just keep coming and coming, and they do not stop.
Seen here, Johnson & Johnson, the drug and medical device maker, reported strong earnings on Tuesday and increased its full-year earnings forecast. Executives acknowledged macro uncertainty, but said they do not see damage to their business yet. On Wednesday, Bank of America reported a jump in quarterly profit from a year earlier, partly because of strong consumer spending that indicated a resilient economy. All of this pointing to the fact that Gen Z's penny-pinching habits will only grow stronger as the year unfolds. So bring on the granny hobbies, because at least it makes survival aesthetic. Goddamn. So not only is everything getting more expensive, everything also sucks now. If you didn't know, we in North America are on a steady path toward everything we use getting worse in quality, driven by a system that rewards cutting costs over maintaining standards.
Am I the only one noticing this, or does it feel like all companies are just pushing their limits? They are just trying to see how far will you pay for their service, their product.
For me, the most noticeable post-COVID example of this is IKEA Furniture. And you know, they are a company that prioritizes prioritizes affordable products for everyday people, which we appreciate. And with that, you don't expect super high quality or solid wood products anyway. That's fine. But I didn't realize the quality could get any lower than it already had, because now many of the furniture pieces they offer aren't even MDF or OSB, but literal cardboard. I really don't want to hate on IKEA because they do serve a really important purpose of making furniture accessible, but cardboard is really disappointing. And it's just a reflection of the way things are going in the world right now. Name a product and I bet you the quality has decreased since inflation took hold of our lives. Affectionately named skimpflation, a tactic where companies reduce the quality, ingredients, or service levels of a product while keeping the price the same. Or more recently, fittingly termed enshittification by Cory Doctorow. But this is a major driver behind Gen Z's push towards self-sufficiency because they are craving quality in a world of junk. We see it in the resurface of, again, knitting and sewing, but also in thrifting. While yes, a big part of the thrifting vintage movement among Gen Z started from a sustainability standpoint, it shifted in recent years to a hunt for higher quality heritage pieces made with real materials.
So basically the whole reason why I collect physical media, why I quit my tech job, why I thrift everything, it's all connected. And it all has to do with the fact that I hate being treated like a sucker. There is this unfathomable level of hostility and contempt towards consumers where it's like these corporations are mad that they have to get through you to get to your money.
It's also very prevalent in the home niche online, where the latest trends include people going to Home Goods or HomeSense and pointing out how much of it is useless junk.
Hi, I was here last year and you guys had a lanky horse statue. Is that something that you guys...
Unfortunately, we did get feedback that was a little too small, but we do have this upgraded model here if you'd like.
That's perfect, thank you.
Back to thrifting though, there has been a really interesting conversation online about how we only have limited years left of good thrifting. As more low quality goods flood the market, donations will continue to decline in quality until there's little value left in the store. Same goes for vintage shops, because what even will be vintage in the next 50 years? Labubus? And that's also how we found ourselves obsessed with these online old farmhouses like Ballerina Farms Home, with the bare beam ceilings, the old cast iron stove, and the natural materials as far as the eye can see. Side note, if you didn't know, wallpaper is even trending again. But long gone are the days of the millennial gray floors and the white subway tile. Now, just like with all the whitewashing, if you try and update an old home in this way, people in the comments will absolutely tear you apart. There's nothing trendier than original hardwood floors, cotton doilies, and wool quilts, because at least they'll last a lifetime. All of this to say, we are in peak enshittification, where the deliberate degradation of products and services has left little that feels appealing to newer generations.
You know, people say that it costs more to knit and sew your own clothes versus buying them. And as someone who does sew and knit everything that I wear, I strongly disagree. Like, yes, it may be cheaper for me to buy a tank top or a cardigan from Gap, Shein, Princess Polly, but what I buy from those stores will never meet my standards. For one, before I sew something or knit something, I get to research the fiber content and then the fabrics and the yarns that I'm using to know that they're going to be durable and last over time. Whereas if I bought a sweater from Gap, I could see what it looks like that first day when I buy it, but I don't know how it's going to look like after 5 years of wear.
And here's the thing, I know this doesn't apply to everyone. We still have a lot of plastic garbage that Gen Z loves, like Nidos, I think are the new trendy thing. But I really think that as time goes on and quality continues to take a backseat, more and more people will start to prioritize this. And here's why. Again, with the Iran war, it's pretty impactful. Our merchandise is about to take a huge hit as the cost of direct materials like plastic, literally made from oil, goes up. So you can bet your bottom dollar that companies won't just raise prices, but cut corners. So many of the companies tracked viewed inflation pressures from outside shocks, such as the war, as an opportunity to raise prices and boost margins, which can in turn raise profits. Quote, I think we're actually going to get some good margin expansion. And so really all this war has done is accelerate the enshittification that was already underway. All the clothes that still have cotton in them will likely become fully polyester. Companies will take a note from IKEA's handbook and swap all particle board for cardboard, and all the metal parts in your appliances will slowly be replaced with plastic.
Tell me why I go into every store and everything is a poly blend, acrylic, lycra, literal plastic on your skin, and these companies are expecting you to pay top dollar, like $150, $200 for a sweater. For what? A piece of plastic? I am not paying top dollar for plastic.
So where does it end? Where's the breaking point where skimpflation and inflation collide? Well, I think it's coming soon, because the only real appeal of low quality brands like Temu or H&M is that they're cheap, right? But once that disappears, so does the appeal. No one wants to buy garbage at a premium price, and eventually people will push back. We're already seeing it with fast food, where prices have climbed so much that it's no longer cheap, and people are opting out. And if that's the case, then we'll only see more and more people returning to traditional products and materials as they desperately search for anything that isn't disposable by design. Okay, final thoughts. While the root of this movement is pretty dystopian, it's also at its worst harmless and maybe even good for the environment, because people becoming self-sustaining puts less stress on the system and decreases consumerism. And we love that. I just wish people didn't feel like they need to start a garden because they're gonna run out of food. I also hope that as people buy less and less low quality items, there will be a resurgence of higher quality new products. We've already seen this in the clothing industry. It's super popular to have an organic cotton or linen clothing brand now. Mind you, they are expensive, but at least they're being created. I also even just saw an ad for a new furniture company whose products are made to grow with and pass down through the generations. Call me intrigued, not a sponsorship. I'm just very interested. Again, mind you, very expensive, but at least it's existing. And that makes me happy. I just don't like how we've gotten to this point. That is all I have for you today. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't and check out the merch. I'm drinking tea from my underpaid mug right now. All the proceeds go to the SA Foundation, and I wish you a week of relief from the ongoing wars around the world. Bye.
Did you know one of the best things we can compost in our gardens is the rich? Composting the rich is actually one of the most effective ways to tackle the climate crisis. And now is the best time to do it, because the rich are only getting richer, and it's the perfect time of year to mulch our gardens. So come on everyone, let's get composting.